Today we're going to look at the smart features of the Apple Watch versus the smart features of the Garmin watch. Now this is going to be an Apple Watch win, hands down, because it's the better smartwatch. It has more going for it. But I'm not comparing which one has more smart features. I want to talk about which one has the most practical smart features for your lifestyle and how do they compare and stack up in that space. The last video I did was comparing the Apple Watch and the Garmin when I went out for a run. You can check that one out up in the corner here, but after this video. And the gist of that video was that the Apple Watch was actually kind of on par with the Garmin in a lot of ways and surpassed it in a few ways when it comes to GPS tracking and workout metrics. But the Garmin is still going to be the king if you're wanting to get into deeper metrics. But like I say, go watch that video after this one is done. So let's take a look at both of these watches and just see how the smart features stack up against each other. Okay, here we have the two watches that we're going to talk about today. This is the Apple Watch Ultra 2 in black. And then this is the Garmin Instinct Series 3 Tactical Edition Solar 50 millimeters. And I've done many videos about the different features and the hardware and the differences between them, but today I just want to talk about smart features. And like I said, this is going to be no contest. The Apple Watch is going to win hands down when it comes to smart features versus what the Garmin has to offer. But I want to ask the question, does the Garmin offer enough smart features where this really just feels like fluff and doesn't matter? And let's start off with the simple things like text messages and phone calls. These both receive text messages. If I get a text that comes through, I'm trying to text myself, but I'm having issues with my other phone here, but they both buzz when something comes through. But again, the Apple Watch is a little bit smarter where it knows when it's off of your wrist and it will not buzz versus this will just sit there on the desk and just buzz all day long unless I turn on Do Not Disturb or something like that on the watch. So the text messages will always buzz this. And like I said, this is a little bit smarter where it knows it's off your wrist. Some of the more higher end Garmin's like the Phoenix lineup actually do that. They have a passcode just like the Apple Watch where they recognize when they're off your wrist and they will not buzz in that same way just to protect sensitive data. So that's kind of nice. So the way I like to think about this is the Apple Watch is going to mirror what the individual apps say on your phone, and the Garmin is more going to mirror the notification shade on your phone. And this is the 16E here as just an extra phone that I have as an example. And so the Garmin is going to mirror, like if you jump into the messages, it's going to show you all the messages as they show up on your phone. So if you've read your messages, it will mark them as read on your watch. That's kind of nice. The Garmin, on the other hand, really just mirrors what is in this notification shade here. And so as you swipe things away in here, it will clear them on the Garmin. You can clear them away from the Garmin and swipe them away from here. And so that's kind of nice where, like I say, the Garmin notification smart management is more this section, which you can look at on the Garmin. You can't do anything with it. You can clear it and then pick up your phone if you want to look at it. Whereas the Apple Watch is more like you're able to go into each individual app to see the data. You can modify calendar events. You can look at deeper weather metrics and stuff like that. It more aligns with the apps on your phone, and so that's kind of nice. And so notification-wise, I would have to honestly just say that they're on par with one another. The Apple Watch ekes out a little bit ahead, and this is where the strongest case for the Apple Watch comes in, is being able to respond to messages from this with either your voice or to be able to react to them, give them a thumbs up, to start a message, to answer a phone call, to be able to do all of that from your wrist is very nice. But for most day-to-day things, I just want to be able to see a notification come through, and then that's it. Like most of the time I pick up my phone anyway, or I can just clear it if I want to get rid of it. So here's a case in point on the Apple Watch versus the Garmin. They're both connected to my phone. The Apple Watch is showing no notifications because I haven't allowed it any notifications to come through. Meaning that I haven't gotten anything that I want to be able to see, right? The messages are in the app, but I already know what they are. I've cleared them away. You know what I mean? Like this is reflecting what's in the app, not necessarily the notification shade. I don't want to see emails. I don't want to see any of that. The Garmin, on the other hand, is going to display everything. So if I go up to my notifications here and I go in, I can see actually the notifications that are sitting on my phone right now. And so if I dive into this, Facebook, some kind of meta policy update, whatever, like I can just view that. And that is kind of nice because I have the ability to like, okay, is that relevant? Is it not? And then I can clear it and it'll clear it away from my phone. The downside is you see everything. And so I have a lot of Facebook message notifications, some text messages. And so that is where like you can see everything and just clear it as it comes through. So that's kind of nice actually, as opposed to the Apple Watch where when I swipe down, I don't get that mirroring effect. And so I do actually like that on the Garmin. Sometimes I wish Apple Watch had that where I don't get buzzed for these things. Like, let me be clear, I don't get buzzed on the Garmin that I get an email come through or that I get a Facebook message notification. This will only buzz when I get a text message and a phone call. Same with this. It only buzzes with a text message and a phone call, but I have the ability to dive in and see what's sitting on my phone a little bit deeper in here versus this. It kind of just filters out. If I haven't allowed it to buzz me, then I won't see it, or I have to dive into the specific app if I want to see that information. And so that is kind of nice about the Garmin, that although the Apple Watch gives you more control over responding and taking phone calls, this allows you to see a fuller picture of your notifications and have more synchronization between the watch and the phone as far as what you are actually able to look at any given time. And so I like that about the Garmin. Next up, let's jump into the weather. This is like the next big thing that I have always gotten used to having on my Apple Watch. Weather has always been in the top right corner. Whatever watch face I've been using, I want to be able to quickly glance and see the temperature with the high and the low. My kids are always asking me if it's going to be a hot day or a cold day. And so it's nice to be able to see what the weather is like for that day. And then I'll be able to scroll through and see the week. And later on, that is like one of the main highlighting features that I love about the Apple Watch, the fact that it syncs it all and it just does it well right there. The Garmin, on the other hand, and this took me a while to get used to because it's not an intuitive thing, I do have a weather complication there. It only allows me to see the current temperature, not the high, not the low. That's not a big deal because I can jump down into here. I have it set where one click down jumps into my weather, and then I can see my high and low. But then I can still jump in and see, okay, this is the high, low, temperature, wind speed, and I still get an hourly picture of the weather throughout the day, and then the next several days in advance, and then trending weather, air quality index. And so I still get the same amount of data. It's just a little bit different the way you access it on this versus the Apple Watch. But what's not intuitive about it is that you have to leave the Garmin app running in the background all the time. The Apple Watch acts as like a more independent device where it can be on Wi-Fi. My phone can be across the house. I can be outside. This can just pull data directly to the device. I don't even have to have my phone within Bluetooth range at all. As long as I have a Wi-Fi or a cellular connection, I can update and see everything. And so that's kind of nice. Versus this is very much a tethered device to your phone. And the Bluetooth signal is a little bit weak on this device. If I go into the other room, it tends to lose connection. It doesn't want to stay connected all the time. The app has to be up in the background on my phone, and then my phone has to be nearby for me to access this data. Otherwise, all the complication data will be blank. And that was a little bit of a learning curve for me to get used to because I was so used to the Apple Watch for years, kind of being a standalone device. I had to retrain my brain to say, oh yeah, I need to leave the app running in the background. I got to make sure my phone is within range. Like if I wear this and I step outside and I leave my phone on my desk, I'm not going to get notified of a text or a call because it's broken that connection. And so that's where the smart experience on the Garmin really begins to fall apart, is because it's tethered to your phone as opposed to the Apple Watch, which acts more like a standalone device. And the weird thing is, on using some of the Phoenix models and higher end models do have Wi-Fi capabilities. And so I'll connect them to my Wi-Fi network at home in my office, but it's still the same story. Same thing. You would think if they had a Wi-Fi connection that they could just pull data directly and bypass the need for a Bluetooth connection on the phone, but that is not the case. The Wi-Fi connection, from what I understand, and someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, the Wi-Fi connection is simply for uploading the workout data and pulling that information faster. And it doesn't really have anything to do necessarily with the smart features and complications. And so that's a little bit of a bummer. The next feature I use all the time is the calendar. I like to be able to have it on there to help me stay on track for the day, to see what I have coming up. And I can quickly jump in and scroll through the day or the month and the week just to see what's going on. I can modify my calendar events, which is kind of nice. I can also do that in conjunction with the reminders. I do use Apple Reminders as like my running task list for my life and my business, and my wife and I share it. And so Apple Reminders is a big part of our life, and being able to see that and control that on the watch is very handy, very handy. This, on the other hand, is just more limited to calendar functionality, and I can set a complication to the next calendar event if I wanted to. I've chosen not to on this particular watch face. Sometimes I flip over to different watch faces where it does have that complication, like this one, for instance. I can see at 9:30 I have an upcoming event, but it's not the same as the Apple Watch where I can actually see event details. But if I jump up I've set it to jump up twice, then I can jump in and see event details. But again, this is a little more finicky than the Apple Watch is because I can't filter out calendar information. Right now I have this set to mirror my iPhone, and so I see exactly what I want to see. On this, it really just pulls in the raw data on my iPhone because I have multiple calendars set up with my personal email, my work email, our family email. It's going to pull the different calendar events for every single one of those emails. And so today's election day here in Colorado. And so it pulls in election day from one of my calendars, and then another calendar is saying the same thing, and another calendar is saying the same thing. It does pull in your workout information from the Garmin coaching. And so that is kind of nice that it does plug it directly into your calendar, and then you can initiate the workout from that. So that part is nice. And then it'll pull in information from there. And so the calendar feature on this is not as robust. I don't use it as often on this. I tend to just leave it on as a lock screen widget on my phone to be able to stay updated that way. And so, but that's not a good or a bad thing. I used to rely heavily on the calendar widget on this to tell me what I need to be doing next and where I need to be going. And so when I stepped away from the Apple Watch, it kind of forced me to do a little bit better time management, not necessarily keeping things in my head, but having external systems more than just relying on the device on my wrist to tell me what I need to be doing. That's neither here nor there. I definitely see where this is more useful though and user friendly. And so I got to give the point to the Apple Watch when it comes to calendar notifications. And I guess I never scored the weather either. Talking about the weather, I'm going to have to give the point to the Apple Watch again on the weather simply because it's a little easier to access and I can see more data at a glance than I can on the Garmin. But theoretically, you can see the same data. But actually, look at this. As I'm filming this, Garmin says 67, Apple says 56. Let's see what the iPhone 16e says. 16e says 57. And so I'm going to trust this. Well, 59. This Apple Watch is using the same data from the Apple Health app. Garmin, somebody can correct me in the comments because they're going to know better than I do. Garmin uses their own, they use like a separate weather sourcing system that's routed through the app on the phone. And so it's not pulling in the Apple weather information. Normally it's pretty close, but I mean, almost like a 10-degree difference is kind of off. And so that's a little bit strange. But again, I'm just going to have to give the point to the Apple Watch. There's more information, more easily accessible, more easily readable at a glance. It is there on the Garmin. It's enough to get you by, but the Apple Watch is just quicker and easier in that regard. Next on the smart feature list, I'm going to talk a little bit about the exercise capability here. And I know I talked about more exercising metrics and what gets measured and all that separately in a different video. But as far as like quickly seeing kind of where you're at, they do it so differently. The Apple Watch does these rings, as we all know. Some people love them, some people hate them. I am indifferent. I used to love them. I have grown more to really not like them as much. I don't think they're awesome. I don't think it's healthy to be pushing yourself that much every single day to close your rings just for the sake of closing rings. And so that's neither here nor there. But the Garmin does a better job of like the body battery and the more training load metrics up and down. And so that is, again, a little bit harder to jump into. But once you do jump into that, I mean, you can see so much more data of body battery and stress metrics and heart rate, which is measuring constantly, unlike the Apple Watch, which is only measuring every few seconds or so. I mean, the Apple Watch really only measures when you go in, right? 8 minutes ago, it was measuring 70 BPM. I mean, I haven't been wearing the thing, but definitely a lot more slow on the Apple Watch and not as consistent throughout the heart rate readings. And the Garmin it just is better that way. Steps, all that stuff. The Garmin gives you a much better health snapshot, health picture than the Apple Watch does, versus this kind of just does more of like you're kind of just moving today. And then you got to scroll through to see, calories, active minutes, hours, steps, all that stuff. And so the Apple Watch definitely is prettier in that regard, but the Garmin is just more robust and practical. But again, that's kind of moving away from smart features into the fitness side of things, which we know the Garmin absolutely crushes in. So for this area, I'm just going to have to give them a tie. And I'm not trying to score them up at the end of the video to create some kind of system. I'm just trying to talk generally about user experience. The Apple Watch is prettier and easier to see your stuff, but the Garmin is going to give you much more usable, practical insights and data. The next thing actually is going to be like the compass, the elevation. I live here in Colorado and I love just seeing how the elevation changes wherever I go. I'm weird that way. Like most people that live in Colorado, we're all about elevation. And so there's a little bit of a difference here, and I'm not sure which one uses the barometric pressure in conjunction with GPS coordinates. People can talk to me and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But what I love about the Garmin, I'm gonna switch back to my regular watch face here, is I see like an elevation graph profile. So this is like over the last 4 or 5 hours, it'll go up and down as I drive around and move around. And it's kind of cool to see like, oh, okay, that area is like higher elevation, that area is lower elevation. I think that's pretty cool. I don't exactly have a way to do that on the Apple Watch. Maybe there's an app that'll let me do that, that'll give me the elevation graph. That would be pretty awesome if it did. And so I just like seeing that. I think that's just a fun thing to say, like, okay, I have a general idea of the elevation profile around the area. And that's pretty awesome. Beyond that, that's kind of where the smart features stop on the Garmin. And that's really the entire list. The Apple Watch has a lot more things, which we'll get into here in a second. But I would argue that those key things are really the most fundamental things that you need a smartwatch for, that you would be using a smartwatch for. And that's really all I was using my Apple Watch for years. And so when I discovered Garmin and I learned the little quirks of like the weather readings and stuff like that, and learned how the notifications work, how they're different than the Apple Watch, I actually didn't hate it. I kind of don't mind the smartwatch features on this at all. It's just smart enough for me to get what I want. But then the Apple Watch, on the other hand, like I said, we can dive further into this thing. And I mean, there's so much. I can run through my email inbox. I can run through music playing, podcasts. I can do so many more things. I can look at recent photos, use it as a camera remote, right? Browse the App Store if I want to get apps. I can check my home security cameras from this, control my TV, start my truck. So many different things. I can see weather, sun pattern information. I can check flight information, use it as a remote for, again, camera control equipment. Like there's so much stuff I can do on this, but to be honest, those key things that we talked about are really all I use it for. I have tried to make things work, like the truck start feature. And I mean, I can dive in here, but by the time the thing loads, this is real time. Okay, I gotta swipe and I can start it, unlock it. Like, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And the time that it takes me to open the app, and it has to refresh and reload when I jump in there. And the time it takes me to open the app and wait for it to load and swipe, and then it takes a while for it to run through and actually get to the truck, I can just open the app on my phone and start it. It's way faster. And that's kind of the story with a lot of smart features on these smartwatches. I can't speak as much for Galaxy watches. I haven't used those. But at least on the Apple Watch, it's kind of the same way. I mean, same thing. I like that they have notes finally, and reminders, but like TV, open the TV remote. This is in real time as we're just waiting here. This is a lot of my issue with these smart features. Yep, TV is literally 10 feet from me. It doesn't work half the time, especially when the TV remote's like sitting 5 feet away, or I can just use my phone, and that has always worked all the time. This is where like I just constantly run into issues like this on the smartwatch that make the smart features just less than desirable, less than usable, I would say. But again, there's little things like if you're going out for a run or for a hike, it's nice to have music or podcasts. I can't do that with this particular Garmin. Some Garmins you can. And that's kind of it. I mean, I can go into the home app. I don't have any cameras set up on the home, but control speakers, I guess. Like maybe if I jump in on the TV here, I can turn it on. Again, it's just a lot of waiting and not really doing anything when you're like, by the time I start this thing, I could have just done the real thing, right? Oh, there we go. Now it was going. And then we wait. There, now I could actually turn on the TV and use it if I wanted to. But then what other smart features do we have in here on this watch? We've got voice memo recording. That's actually super handy. I do use that sometimes. It's nice to be able to record audio for a video or a quick memo or a quick note, or record a conversation if you need to, if you got to like take a phone call recording. That's very handy. And so, yeah, again, there's just little things that are like, it's nice quality of life stuff, but the majority of the smart stuff, I don't really care about. I don't really use. And that's where, at the end of the day, I just want a watch that's going to notify me of important phone calls, notify me of text messages from the people I care about. And that's it. I already have all this stuff set up on my phone the way I want it, where my group texts are silent. And so I only really get buzzed for my wife and for certain people. And so it'll only pull that stuff through on the Garmin. It'll only pull it through on the AppleWatch. I can quickly respond or initiate messages from my AppleWatch versus just seeing them on the Garmin, and it's inconsistent on the Garmin. I will miss messages if I walk away from my phone. I don't have it on me all the time, but that's kind of a good thing. And so really kind of pulling between these two different camps, it's like, do you want more capabilities and more features at the price of battery life? You're going to be charging this at least every day or two, versus more like, you know what, it kind of gives me what I need. It's more not flashy, but I can still see weather. I can still get notified of calls and texts as long as I have my phone nearby, and the battery will last me for weeks. That's kind of the pull. That's the draw. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of the depth of the smart features between the two of them. The Apple Watch certainly does provide more, but what the Garmin provides is kind of on par with what the Apple Watch provides on some of the basic stuff. So as you can see, the Garmin actually does a pretty decent job when it comes to smart metrics and smart features like we've gotten used to seeing on the Apple Watch, especially if you have a touchscreen and AMOLED version on some of the different Garmin models like the Forerunner or the Phoenix. Mine is not that. It just gives you easier access into your complications and into the data you're looking for. And so it's really not that far off from the Apple Watch when it comes to basic things like you would expect and want out of a smartwatch. And so for that reason, I kind of dig it. I like it a lot. It's just enough for what I need. The Apple Watch has a whole long list of longer, more complicated things, but I don't use that. I don't like it. I don't need it. And so the Garmin, for me, works out great. What about for you? Let me know what you like to wear. Let me know what you use your watch for. Do you use a Garmin? Do you use an Apple Watch? Give me your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.